Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a pretty profound concept, one that touches every single life, death.
That's right.
We're using some powerful excerpts from The Illusion of Death, and honestly, it might challenge some of the ways you think about what an end really means. So our mission really is to explore this central question for you. Is death truly, an absolute stop? Or is there maybe something more, a kind of continuity beyond the physical body?
Well, for most people, I think death just means finality, doesn't it? A full
Well,
stop.
The end.
Exactly. But what's so striking about the ancient wisdom in these sources is how they offer a completely different perspective. It's radical, really.
How so?
They see death less as annihilation and more as a dynamic process, a kind of profound transformation.
Okay, transformation. Let's start unpacking that.
Yeah.
How do these ancient texts actually define death?
Well, fundamentally, they put it quite simply, it's the end of the body.
The end of the body, okay.
And this is crucial, the body isn't just, meat and bones.
Ah, right. There's more to it.
Yes. Ancient traditions, especially from India, describe it as being made up of 5 fundamental elements.
The 5 elements. I think I know these. Earth.
Earth for solidity, yes.
Okay.
Then water for cohesion.
Okay.
Fire, which governs, temperature and metabolism.
Makes sense.
Air, obviously linked to movement and breath. And finally, sky or space, the sort of medium everything exists in.
So these aren't just literal things like dirt and water.
Not entirely literal, no. They represent the fundamental forces or qualities that constitute our physical being.
Got it. So if death is the end of that body, how does that happen according to these texts? Does it just stop?
Well, what's fascinating is how they describe the dissolution. It's not chaotic. It's actually presented as remarkably orderly.
Orderly? How?
These elements are said to leave the body systematically in a specific sequence.
Okay.
First, the breath, the air element, it departs. That's usually seen as the primary sign. Then the body starts to cool down. That signifies the fire element leaving.
Right, the loss of heat.
Exactly. Then comes dehydration as the water element dissipates.
Okay.
And finally, the physical substance merges back with the earth. That covers both the earth element and, the space the body occupied.
Huh. Sounds almost like a reversal of how things are built up.
Precisely. A systematic return, element by element, back to the cosmos.
But, okay, that's the body. What about us, the person? This is where it gets really interesting, isn't it?
This is where the perspective really shifts.
I was reading about Acharya Nagar, the Buddhist philosopher from, 2nd century India?
Yes, a major figure.
He had this view that's just, it's mind-bending. He said, death is merely a change of attire and a dress.
Think about that phrase. Attire and a dress.
It completely reframes it, doesn't it?
You
It
can-
suggests the core thing isn't gone. It just moved, changed its clothes.
Exactly. Nagar isn't just saying the body, the attire changes. He's implying that the animating force, the essence that was you, the energy, that it's fundamentally indestructible.
So not disappearance, but rearrangement, like water turning to steam.
That's a great analogy. The form changes dramatically, but the underlying substance, H2O, remains.
Wow. Okay. And how does this connect maybe to other texts, like the Gita?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it aligns almost perfectly with a very direct statement in the Bhagavad Gita.
Which is,
The Gita says quite starkly, no one dies, and in reality, no one dies. In Hindi, so one dies, no one dies.
no one dies. That's absolutely.
It is. It's not just philosophy. It powerfully reinforces this idea that the animating energy, the life force, simply doesn't get destroyed.
It reminds me a bit of, basic physics.
Yeah.
Conservation of energy.
Precisely. Energy changes form, it transforms, but the total amount remains constant. It's never really lost or created from nothing. These ancient texts seem to be tapping into a similar understanding about the essence of life itself.
So thinking about this, what does this all mean for you listening right now? How does this ancient viewpoint, dissolution of elements, indestructible energy, how does that stack up against our modern, often quite materialist view of death?
Where it's often seen as just oblivion, lights out.
Exactly. Does hearing this shift anything for you about what ending really means?
I think the core takeaway, pulling these threads together, is that death in these traditions is presented not as annihilation, but as transformation.
A return, a change.
Yes, a complex process where the physical components, the elements, return to their source. But crucially, the underlying energy, the essence, persists. It continues its journey just differently.
The form changes, the attire changes, but something fundamental remains.
That's the core idea.
Which really leaves us with a pretty big question to ponder, doesn't it? If energy